The medical bay of the UHS Mercy's Dawn hummed with quiet activity as Dr. Marcus Kane finished stitching the last wound on a young Viridian child. The green-skinned alien looked up at him with large purple eyes, fear slowly fading as the pain disappeared. Kane smiled and patted the child's shoulder gently. "You will be fine now," Kane said in simple galactic standard. The child's mother, tears streaming down her face, bowed deeply to the human doctor. Kane helped the family to the recovery ward, where dozens of beds held patients from 7 different species. The Mercy's Dawn was the largest hospital ship in human space, a massive white vessel with red medical crosses painted on every surface. For 3 years, it had served in the neutral Kepler sector, treating wounded civilians and soldiers from all sides of the Third Galactic War. The ship's medical bays never closed, and Dr. Kane rarely slept more than 4 hours at a time. Captain Lisa Morgan walked into the medical bay, her uniform crisp despite the long hours she worked. She found Kane checking on a wounded Korthani soldier, one of their enemies. The reptilian warrior had lost his left arm in a mining accident, not in battle. Kane worked carefully to fit a new mechanical limb. "Doctor, we have incoming wounded from the Centauri station attack," Morgan said quietly. 43 casualties, mostly humans and Altarians." Kane nodded without looking up from his work. "How long until they arrive?" 2 hours. Admiral Sullivan sent an escort. "He says the Korthani have been more aggressive lately." Kane finished connecting the mechanical arm and tested its movement. The Korthani soldier flexed his new fingers, amazement in his yellow eyes. "Thank you, human doctor," he said in broken standard. "Rest now," Kane replied. He turned to Captain Morgan. "The Korthani respect medical ships. They always have." Morgan looked worried. "I hope you are right, Marcus. The war is getting worse. Sometimes I think people forget what we do here." Kane had been a military engineer before becoming a doctor. He designed weapons and defense systems for the Human Defense Force. But after losing his wife and daughter in the First Galactic War, he changed everything. He learned medicine, studied alien biology, and dedicated his life to healing instead of harming. The Mercy's Dawn became his new home. 2 hours later, the wounded arrived. Kane worked for 18 straight hours, saving lives with the help of his medical team. Human nurses worked beside Altarian healers and crystalline medical techs. Species that fought each other in space worked together in the hospital ship's corridors. Dr. Amy Foster, Kane's old friend from his engineering days, visited the ship that week. She now ran research for the human fleet and came with bad news. "The war is going badly, Marcus. The Korthani have new armor technology. Our weapons barely scratch them." Kane cleaned his hands after another surgery. "That is not my problem anymore. Amy. I save lives now." Amy watched him work. "Your medical knowledge of alien species is incredible. You know their bodies better than their own doctors." "I have to. How can I heal them if I do not understand them?" 3 days later, everything changed. Kane was treating a hegemony diplomat's injured child when the alarm started. Captain Morgan's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "All medical staff, prepare for emergency procedures. Unknown ships approaching." Kane looked at the child, a small humanoid with blue skin and silver hair. The diplomatic injury was healing well. He handed the child to a nurse and ran to the bridge. On the main screen, a Korthani battle fleet emerged from hyperspace. 15 ships, all weapons powered and ready. The lead ship was massive, a dreadnought-class vessel painted in the dark red colors of their military. "They are not responding to our medical identification signals," reported the communications officer. Captain Morgan tried again. "Korthani Fleet, this is the hospital ship UHS Mercy's Dawn. We are operating under galactic medical conventions. We have wounded from all species aboard." The Korthani dreadnought moved closer. On screen, a reptilian face appeared. War Commander Zektar, his scales bearing battle scars, stared at them with cold, yellow eyes. "Human vessel," Zektar spoke slowly. "Our intelligence reports you hide military equipment. Hospital ships are often not what they seem." "Commander, we are a legitimate medical vessel," Morgan replied. "You can scan us. We have no weapons, no military technology." Zektar's eyes narrowed. "Humans are clever. You hide things well." Kane stepped forward. "Commander, I am Dr. Marcus Kane, Chief Medical Officer. We have 37 Korthani patients aboard, civilians and soldiers we have treated. Would you harm your own people?" For a moment, Zektar hesitated. Then his expression hardened. "War makes difficult choices necessary. If you have military secrets, they must not reach human command." "We have no secrets," Kane shouted. "Only medicine and healing." Zektar cut the communication. The Korthani fleet formed an attack pattern. Captain Morgan ordered all defensive measures. The Mercy's Dawn raised its shields, but they were weak. Hospital ships carried minimal defensive systems. Medical ships relied on galactic law and basic decency for protection. The first energy blast shook the entire ship. Lights flickered and emergency alarms screamed. Kane ran back to the medical bays, where patients cried out in fear. The Viridian child he had treated earlier clung to his mother. The Korthani soldier with the mechanical arm stared in shock at the ceiling. "All medical staff, evacuate patients to escape pods," Morgan ordered over the speakers. But there were not enough escape pods for everyone. The Mercy's Dawn carried over 2,000 patients and staff. Kane knew they could save maybe 600 people. The second blast hit the engine section. The ship's power failed in several decks. Kane helped carry wounded patients toward the escape pods, but the corridors filled with smoke and debris. Amy Foster found him in the chaos. "Marcus, there is a pod ready. We have to go now." Kane looked around the medical bay. Hundreds of patients still lay in their beds. The young Viridian child cried as his mother tried to carry him. The Korthani soldier struggled to walk with his new mechanical arm. "I cannot leave them," Kane said. "You will die if you stay." The third blast tore through the main medical deck. The ceiling collapsed, crushing beds and equipment. Kane saw the Viridian child disappear under falling metal. He heard the mother's scream cut short. Amy grabbed Kane and pulled him toward the escape pod. Around them, the ship died. Patients from 7 different species called out for help. Medical staff tried desperately to save who they could. Kane's escape pod launched just as the 4th blast hit. Through the small window, he watched the UHS Mercy's Dawn break apart. Fire spread through the white corridors where he had worked for 3 years. The red medical crosses on the hull burned and faded. 2,000 beings died that day. Doctors, nurses, patients, and families. The Korthani fleet watched the hospital ship burn, then jumped to hyperspace without rescuing survivors. Kane floated in space, his escape pod's weak engines carrying him slowly toward a nearby asteroid field. Behind him, the wreckage of the Mercies. Dawn drifted like a broken dream. He pressed his hands against the cold window and made a promise. The galaxy had forgotten the value of mercy. Now Kane would teach them the price of cruelty. He was no longer just a doctor. The man who had dedicated his life to healing had just watched evil destroy everything he cared about. In the darkness of space, Dr. Marcus Kane began to plan. 3 months after the destruction of the Mercy's Dawn, Dr. Marcus Kane sat in a small room on Luna Station. The Earth's moon base served as the main headquarters for Human Defense Force operations. Kane stared out the window at the blue planet below, but his mind was somewhere else. He had not slept well since the attack. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Viridian child's face. He heard the mother's scream. He remembered the Korthani soldier with the mechanical arm, confused and afraid as the ship died around him. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Admiral Jake Sullivan entered, a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Sullivan had commanded human forces through 2 galactic wars. He looked older now, worn down by months of bad news. "Dr. Kane," Sullivan said, sitting across from him. "How are you feeling?" Kane did not answer immediately. He had been asked this question many times by military doctors, psychologists, and friends. "I am alive," he finally said. 2,000 others are not. Sullivan nodded slowly. "The galaxy is angry about what happened. Even some Korthani leaders called the attack a war crime. But War Commander Zektar claims you were hiding military technology." "We had nothing but medical equipment," Kane said quietly. "I know, but the damage is done. 3 neutral species have joined the Korthani side. They believe human hospital ships might really be weapons platforms." Kane looked at Sullivan. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we are losing, Doctor. The Korthani have new adaptive armor technology. Our weapons hit them and do nothing. Their systems learn from each attack and become stronger. We need new ideas." Before Kane could respond, another person entered the room. Dr. Amy Foster wore the blue uniform of Human Fleet Research Division. She carried a datapad and looked nervous. "Marcus," Amy said, sitting down, "I need to ask you something important." Kane studied his old friend. They had worked together years ago, designing defense systems for human colonies. Amy was brilliant, but she always needed help with the really difficult problems. "The research division has been working on the Korthani armor problem for 6 months," Amy continued. "We cannot figure out how it works. The armor adapts to any weapon we use. Energy beams, kinetic rounds, plasma bursts. Nothing gets through." "I'm a doctor now," Kane said. "I do not work on weapons." "But you understand alien biology better than anyone," Amy pressed. "You have studied 7 different species. You know how their bodies work, how they think, how they heal." Admiral Sullivan leaned forward. "Doctor, I know you want nothing to do with weapons. But right now, medicine and war are connected. If we lose this war, there will be no more human hospital ships, no more healing." Kane was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "How many human ships have we lost?" "In the last month?" 43, Sullivan answered. "The Korthani are winning every battle." Amy activated her data pad. "Look at this." She showed Kane footage from a recent battle. Human ships fired everything they had at a single Korthani cruiser. The alien vessel's armor simply absorbed the damage and grew stronger. "Fascinating," Kane said despite himself. "The armor learns and adapts, but adaptation requires time and energy." "Exactly," Amy said excitedly. "But we cannot figure out how to exploit that weakness." Kane stood and walked to the window. Earth looked peaceful from space, but he knew the truth. The war was coming closer to humanity's home system. Soon, the fighting would reach Earth itself. "I need to think," Kane said. Amy and Sullivan left, him alone. Kane spent the next day walking through Luna Station's medical facilities. He watched human doctors treating wounded soldiers. The injuries were terrible: burns from energy weapons, crushing damage from kinetic impacts, radiation, poisoning from damaged reactors. But what bothered Kane most was the fear in the patients' eyes. They knew humanity was losing. They knew the Corthani were getting stronger while human forces grew weaker. That evening, Kane received terrible news. A message came through official channels. The Corthani had attacked 2 more hospital ships. The UHS Healing Light and the UHS Sanctuary had been destroyed in the Vega system. Both ships were clearly marked as medical vessels. Both had been full of wounded civilians. Kane read the report 3 times. Over 3,000 people had died: doctors, nurses, patients, and families. The Corthani claimed both ships were hiding military equipment. No evidence was ever provided. Something inside Kane broke. He had tried to move past the destruction of the Mercy's dawn. He had tried to focus on healing instead of revenge. But the galaxy would not let him heal. Evil kept destroying everything good and innocent. Kane walked to Amy's laboratory at midnight. The research facility was nearly empty. Just a few night shift workers running tests. He found Amy asleep at her desk, surrounded by failed armor designs. "Amy," Kane said, shaking her shoulder gently. She woke up quickly. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I want to see everything you have on Corthani adaptive armor." Amy looked, confused. "It is past midnight. Are you sure you want to do this now?" "Show me everything." For the next 2 hours, Amy explained their research. The Corthani armor was incredible technology. It could analyze incoming weapons and adapt its defense in real time. Energy shields adjusted their frequency. Physical armor changed its molecular structure. The system learned from every attack. "The problem," Amy said, "is that we keep thinking like humans. We design weapons to break through armor. But maybe we are approaching this wrong." Kane studied the data carefully. His medical training helped him see things differently. "The armor is like an immune system," he said slowly. "It learns to fight specific threats." "Yes, exactly. But what if we do not attack the armor directly? What if we attack the biological systems underneath?" Amy stared at him. "I do not understand." Kane's mind was racing now. Years of studying alien biology combined with his old engineering knowledge. Every species has weaknesses, biological vulnerabilities that armor cannot protect against. But how would we target those weaknesses? We would need incredibly precise delivery systems. Kane smiled for the first time in months. We would need something small enough to get through any armor. Something smart enough to identify the right targets. Something that could adapt faster than any defense system. That is impossible with current technology. "No," Kane said quietly. "It is not." Kane spent the next 72 hours locked in a research laboratory. He did not eat, barely drank water, and never slept. Amy brought him data files on every known alien species. Kane studied their biology, their weaknesses, their cellular structures. On the 4th day, Amy found him passed out at his workstation. Medical nanobots covered every surface, tiny machines smaller than bacteria. Kane had been building them by hand, one molecule at a time. When Kane woke up, he found Amy and Admiral Sullivan waiting for him. "Marcus," Amy said carefully, "what have you been doing?" Kane sat up slowly. His eyes were red from exhaustion, but they were also bright with purpose. "I have been solving our problem." He activated a holographic display. Millions of tiny machines. appeared in 3D projection, each one smaller than a virus. Medical nanobots, Kane explained. I designed them to treat diseases and repair cellular damage, but they can do much more. Sullivan leaned closer. What kind of much more? Kane's smile was cold. They can target specific biological weaknesses in any known species. They can adapt faster than any armor system. And they can choose between healing and harming. Amy stared at the hologram. Marcus, this is incredible. But how do we control them? That, Kane said, is the most important part. These nanobots are programmed with my genetic markers and neural patterns. Only I can control them. Only I can decide who they heal and who they harm. Admiral Sullivan understood immediately. You have made yourself indispensable. The galaxy forgot the value of mercy, Kane said quietly. Now they will learn the price of cruelty. But the choice between healing and harming will always be mine. Kane looked out the laboratory window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, War Commander Zektar was celebrating his victories. The Korthani Empire thought they were winning the war. They had no idea that Dr. Marcus Kane was about to change everything. The testing facility on Luna Station's dark side had been built for dangerous experiments. Dr. Marcus Kane stood behind reinforced glass, watching his nanobots work on their first real target. A piece of Korthani adaptive armor sat on the test table. The same technology that had made their ships nearly invincible. Beginning test sequence, Kane said into his recording device. Admiral Sullivan and Dr. Amy Foster watched from the observation deck above. Kane activated a small device in his hand. Millions of nanobots, invisible to the naked eye, flowed toward the armor sample. The Korthani technology immediately began adapting, its surface shifting and changing as it detected the approaching threat. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. The armor's adaptive systems worked perfectly, adjusting to defend against the tiny machines. Then everything changed. The nanobots suddenly penetrated the armor's outer layer. Kane watched his creation analyze the alien technology in real time. Within minutes, they had mapped every defensive system and found 17 different ways to bypass them. Incredible, Amy whispered. How are they adapting so fast? Kane smiled grimly. I programmed them with medical knowledge of Korthani biology. They are not just attacking the armor. They are studying how Korthani nervous systems interface with their technology. The armor sample began to malfunction. Its adaptive systems, confused by the nanobot's approach, started working against each other. Within 10 minutes, the piece of equipment that had protected Korthani ships for months was completely useless. Admiral Sullivan came down to the testing floor. Doctor, this is remarkable, but can they work in real combat conditions? Only one. Way to find out, Kane replied. 2 weeks later, the human frigate UHS Defiant approached a Korthani patrol in the Arcturus system. Captain Steve Martinez commanded the small ship, one of only 12 vessels in his squadron. They faced 5 Korthani cruisers, each one 3 times larger than human ships. Kane stood on the Defiant's bridge, a control device in his hands. Millions of his nanobots waited in specially designed torpedo casings. For the first time since creating them, he would test his machines against living enemies. Korthani ships are powering weapons, reported the tactical officer. They are demanding our surrender. Captain Martinez looked at Kane. Doctor, are you sure about this? Kane thought about the Mercy's dawn. He remembered the Viridian child's face, the mother's scream, the Korthani soldier who had tried to thank him for the mechanical arm, all of them dead because War Commander Zektar chose cruelty over mercy. Fire. When ready, Captain. The Defiant launched 6 torpedoes. The Korthani cruisers easily destroyed 4 of them with defensive fire. But 2 torpedoes reached their targets, releasing clouds of nanobots against the alien ship's hulls. For a moment, nothing happened. The Korthani adaptive armor began working, analyzing the threat and adjusting defenses. Their commanding officer probably thought the human attack had failed. Then Kane activated his control device. The nanobots came alive with terrible purpose. They flowed through the Korthani armor like water through a broken dam. Kane had programmed them with detailed knowledge of reptilian biology, their nervous systems, their circulatory patterns, their cellular structures. But Kane was not trying to kill the crew. His nanobots targeted the interface connections between Korthani pilots and their ships. Within minutes, the alien vessels lost all control. Engines shut down. Weapons powered off. Life support continued working, but the ships could no longer fight. Korthani vessels are dead in space, reported the tactical officer, amazement in his voice. All 5 ships completely disabled. Captain Martinez stared at the tactical display. In 3 minutes, we defeated 5 cruisers. How is this possible? Kane watched the helpless Korthani ships drift in space. His nanobots could have killed everyone aboard in seconds. Instead, they had chosen precise, non-lethal targeting. The alien crews were alive, but helpless. My nanobots do not just attack randomly, Kane explained. They study their targets and choose the most effective approach. Against Korthani technology, the best strategy is precision rather than destruction. Should we destroy the disabled ships? Asked the weapons officer. No, Kane said firmly. Send rescue signals. Make sure their life support stays online. The galaxy needs to see that we choose mercy even in victory. News of the battle spread quickly through both human and alien communication networks. A single human frigate had defeated 5 Korthani cruisers without firing a single energy blast. The implications were staggering. Dr. Amy Foster visited Kane on Luna Station 3 days later. She found him in his laboratory, studying battle reports and refining his nanobots' programming. Marcus, what you did at Arcturus has changed everything, Amy said. The Korthani fleet has pulled back to defensive positions. Their adaptive armor is useless against your technology. Kane did not look up from his work. This is only the beginning. My nanobots learned from that first engagement. They are already adapting to counter Korthani countermeasures that do not even exist yet. How is that possible? Kane finally turned to face his old friend. I programmed them with medical knowledge of 7 different species. They understand biological systems better than most doctors. When they encounter new technology, they predict how different species would try to defend against them. Amy studied the data on Kane's screens. These machines are learning faster than anything we have ever seen. They have to, Kane said quietly. The galaxy is watching us now. Every species with any sense is trying to figure out how my nanobots work. Some will try to copy them. Others will try to defend against them. And you are not worried? Kane smiled coldly. Let them try. My nanobots are not just machines. They are an extension of my medical knowledge and engineering genius. No one else understands alien biology the way I do. No one else can program machines with the same precision. Admiral Sullivan arrived at the laboratory that evening with urgent news. Doctor, we have a problem. The Crystalline Collective has requested a meeting. They want to understand your technology. The Crystalline Collective had remained neutral throughout the war. Their silicon-based biology made them difficult to harm with conventional weapons, but they feared any technology that could adapt to different species. "What do they want?" Kane asked. "Assurance that your nanobots cannot harm their people." Kane considered this carefully. The Crystalline Collective controlled several important trade routes. Their neutrality had helped smaller species stay out of the war. "Tell them I will meet with their representatives," Kane decided. "But the meeting happens on human terms." 3 days later, a crystalline delegation arrived at Luna Station. Their leader, Prime Minister Quartz 7, stood 8 feet tall with a body made of living crystal. Light refracted through his transparent form as he spoke. "Dr. Kane," Quartz 7 said in his resonant voice, "your nanobots concern us greatly. We wish to know if they pose a threat to silicon-based life." Kane had prepared for this question. "My nanobots are programmed with medical knowledge of your species. They could harm you, but they could also heal injuries that your own medicine cannot treat." The crystalline delegation exchanged glances, light patterns flickering through their bodies as they communicated. "You offer both threat and promise," Quartz 7 observed. "I offer choice," Kane corrected. "My nanobots respond to my commands. I decide who they heal and who they harm. Species that respect medical neutrality and civilian protection have nothing to fear from me. And those who do not?" Kane's expression hardened. "Ask War Commander Zektar about the price of attacking hospital ships." The crystalline delegation left Luna Station that day with a clear understanding. Dr. Marcus Kane had created the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. But unlike conventional weapons, these nanobots came with a moral code built into their programming. That night, Kane stood alone in his laboratory looking at the latest tactical reports. Korthani forces were retreating on 3 fronts. Other alien species were reconsidering their alliances. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting rapidly. But Kane knew this was only the beginning. His nanobots had won 1 battle, but the war was far from over. War Commander Zektar would not give up easily. The Korthani Empire had their pride, and pride made people do dangerous things. Kane activated his nanobots' learning protocols one more time. "Let the galaxy tremble," he thought. "Let them all remember what happened when." The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council took place on the neutral station of Haven's Rest. Representatives from 23 species gathered in the Great Chamber, its dome showing the stars beyond. The topic was urgent: Dr. Marcus Kane's nanobots and what they meant for the future of galactic warfare. Ambassador Helen Price represented humanity at the council. She was an experienced diplomat who had negotiated treaties for 15 years, but she had never dealt with anything like this situation. "The human weapon violates the spirit of warfare," declared Senator Vexhai of the hegemony of Vega. His 4 arms gestured dramatically as he spoke. "These nanobots are too precise, too intelligent. They make traditional military forces obsolete." Ambassador Price stood calmly. "Dr. Kane's technology ended a battle without killing anyone. The Korthani crew survived. How is saving lives a violation of anything?" "Because it changes everything," shouted War Delegate Mordun from the Outer Rim Coalition. "If humans can disable our ships without destroying them, what happens to military honor? What happens to the warrior's code?" From the observation gallery, Dr. Marcus Kane watched the debate. Admiral Sullivan had brought him to Haven's Rest to answer questions about his technology, but Kane found the discussion amusing. These aliens talked about honor while ignoring the destruction of hospital ships. Prime Minister Quartz 7 of the Crystalline Collective rose to speak. Light patterns flowed through his transparent body as he addressed the council. Dr. Kane has offered both threat and healing to our species, Quartz 7 said. This dual nature makes his nanobots unique in galactic history. We must understand his intentions. My intentions are simple, Kane said, standing up in the gallery. I want the war to end. I want hospital ships to be safe. I want healing to be respected. War Delegate Mordoon turned toward Kane. And if we refuse your terms? Kane's expression was cold. Then you will learn why attacking medical vessels was a mistake. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood the threat behind Kane's quiet words. Ambassador Price took control of the conversation. Dr. Kane is offering the galaxy a choice. Nations that respect medical neutrality and civilian protection can access revolutionary healing, technology. Those who continue attacking hospitals and medical personnel will face the consequences. Senator Vexhigh leaned forward. What kind of healing technology? Kane activated a holographic display from his position in the gallery. The nanobots appeared in 3D projection, their microscopic forms dancing in the light. My nanobots can repair cellular damage that current medicine cannot treat, Kane explained. Genetic disorders, radiation poisoning, neural trauma, organ failure, they can fix problems that kill millions of people every year. The chamber buzzed with excited conversation. Several species had medical problems that their own science could not solve. The promise of universal healing technology was incredibly tempting. But the nanobots only respond to you, observed Ambassador Talara from the outer systems. What happens if something happens to you? Kane smiled slightly. Then the galaxy loses access to both the healing and the weapon. Perhaps that would encourage people to keep me safe. War Delegate Mordoon stood angrily. This is blackmail. You threaten the entire galaxy to protect your own life. I protect my own life to serve the galaxy, Kane corrected. Without me, my nanobots become inactive. They cannot heal and they cannot harm. The choice is yours. 3 days after the council meeting, Kane received an unexpected visitor on Luna Station. Captain Lisa Morgan, former commander of the UHS Mercy's Dawn, walked into his laboratory. She looked older, tired from months of recovery after her escape pod rescue. Dr. Kane, Morgan said quietly, I heard about what you have been doing. Kane looked up from his work. Captain Morgan, I thought you had retired from active service. I have. But I wanted to thank you. Kane was confused. Thank me for what? For remembering them. The patients we lost, the medical staff, the families. You could have created weapons for revenge. Instead, you made healing possible. Kane was quiet for a moment. The nanobots can kill very efficiently, Captain. I have shown restraint. Exactly. You have the power to destroy entire fleets, but you choose precision over destruction. That is the difference between justice and revenge. That evening, Kane received reports from across the galaxy. The political situation was changing rapidly. The hegemony of Vega had signed a formal alliance with humanity, seeking access to nanobots' medical applications. The Crystalline Collective offered defensive pacts. Even the Outer Rim Coalition was reconsidering their neutrality. But the most important news came from Corthani space. War Commander Zektar had convinced the Empire's leadership to launch one final massive attack. If they could not win with their adaptive armor, they would win through sheer numbers. Dr. Amy Foster brought Kane the intelligence reports. Marcus, they are gathering every ship they have, over 300 vessels, including their entire dreadnought fleet. Kane studied the tactical data. Where are they planning to attack? Earth. They want to strike at humanity's home system. Admiral Me. Sullivan joined them in Kane's laboratory. Doctor, this could be exactly what we need. If we can defeat their entire fleet at once, the war ends immediately. Kane was already thinking ahead. How long until they reach Earth? 6 days, Sullivan replied. Perfect. That gives me time to prepare a special welcome for War Commander Zektar. Kane spent the next 4 days modifying his nanobots. He created new programs, new targeting protocols, new choices between healing and harming. But most importantly, he prepared a message for the galaxy. Amy, Kane said on the 5th day, I need you to broadcast something on all galactic communication channels. What kind of message? Kane stood in front of a recording device. His appearance was calm, but his eyes held the promise of terrible power. Citizens of the galaxy, Kane began his broadcast. 3 months ago, the Korthani Empire attacked the hospital ship UHS Mercy's Dawn. They destroyed a medical vessel that was treating patients from 7 different species. Over 2,000 people died, including doctors, nurses, children, and families. The message continued for 10 minutes. Kane explained his nanobots, their capabilities, and their dual nature. He offered healing to those who respected medical neutrality. He promised consequences for those who attacked hospitals. War Commander Zektar is bringing his entire fleet to Earth, Kane concluded. He has chosen to continue a path of cruelty and destruction. The galaxy will see the result of that choice. The broadcast reached every inhabited system within hours. Neutral species watched carefully to see how the confrontation would end. Some hoped Kane would show mercy. Others wanted to see the full power of his technology. On the 6th day, the Korthani fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 ships in perfect formation, their hulls dark red against the black of space. War Commander Zektar commanded from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed every other vessel. Kane waited for them on Luna Station. His nanobots were ready, loaded into special delivery systems throughout the human defense fleet. But Kane had also prepared something else, a choice that would define the galaxy's future. Admiral Sullivan stood beside Kane as they watched the approaching enemy fleet. Doctor, they outnumber us 10-1. Are you certain your nanobots can handle this many ships? Kane looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of red dots moving toward Earth. Somewhere among those ships, War Commander. Zektar was probably planning humanity's destruction. The reptilian commander had learned nothing from his previous defeats. Admiral, Kane said quietly, they are about to learn the difference between a weapon that destroys and a weapon that thinks. The Battle of Sol System was about to begin, and Dr. Marcus Kane was ready to show the galaxy what happened when someone attacked a human hospital ship. The Korthani fleet moved through the outer solar system like a dark tide. 300 warships in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready for battle. War Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays that showed the pathetic human defense fleet. 47 human ships, reported his tactical officer. They are outnumbered 7-1. Zektar's yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The humans think their nanobots will save them. Today, they learned that overwhelming force defeats clever technology. On Luna Station, Dr. Marcus Kane watched the approaching fleet with calm eyes. Admiral Sullivan paced nervously behind him, but Kane remained perfectly still. His nanobots were ready, but this battle would be different from all the others. Doctor, Sullivan said, should we launch the first attack? No, Kane replied quietly. Let them come closer. I want the entire galaxy to see this clearly. The human defense fleet took position between Earth and the approaching Corthani armada. Captain Steve Martinez commanded the lead squadron from his ship, the UHS Defiant. He had seen Kane's nanobots work before, but never against such overwhelming numbers. "All ships, maintain defensive positions," Martinez ordered. "Do not fire until Dr. Kane gives the signal." War Commander Zektar opened a communication channel to the human fleet. His scarred reptilian face appeared on screens throughout the solar system. "Humans," Zektar announced, "you will surrender immediately. Your nanobots cannot defeat the entire Corthani Empire. We have learned from our previous encounters." Kane stepped forward and activated his own communication system. His image appeared on every ship in both fleets, and his broadcast reached across the galaxy. "War Commander Zektar," Kane said calmly, "3 months ago you destroyed the hospital. Ship UHS Mercy's Dawn. You killed 2,000 patients and medical staff, including 37 of your own people. War requires difficult choices," Zektar replied. "Medical ships can hide military secrets. We had no secrets, only healing." Kane's voice remained steady, but his eyes grew cold. "Since then, you have destroyed 2 more hospital ships. You have shown the galaxy that Corthani honor means nothing when faced with helpless civilians." Zektar's expression hardened. "Enough talk. Surrender or face destruction." Kane smiled slightly. "I offer you the same choice I have offered everyone else. Respect medical neutrality and civilian protection, and gain access to revolutionary healing technology. Continue your path of cruelty and face the consequences." "You threaten me with your nanobots? I have 300 ships." "I threaten you with nothing," Kane said. "I simply offer you a choice between healing and consequences. The decision is yours." Zektar cut the communication and turned to his fleet. "Commanders, all ships, attack formation. Destroy the human vessels and proceed to Earth." The Corthani fleet charged forward, weapons blazing. Energy beams and kinetic rounds filled space between the two forces. The human ships returned fire, but their shots barely scratched the Corthani adaptive armor. For 5 minutes, the battle looked hopeless. Human ships took damage while their weapons proved nearly useless against enemy armor. Several human vessels lost shields and began retreating. Then Kane activated his nanobots. Millions of microscopic machines flowed from the human ships toward the Corthani fleet. But these nanobots were different from the ones Kane had used before. He had spent 4 days programming them with new instructions, new choices, new purposes. The nanobots reached the first Corthani ships and immediately began their analysis. But instead of simply disabling systems, they made more complex decisions. Ships that had attacked hospital ships received one treatment. Ships that had never harmed medical vessels received another. War Commander Zektar watched in horror as his fleet began shutting down. But something was wrong. Some ships were affected immediately while others continued fighting for several more minutes. "What is happening?" Zektar demanded from his tactical officer. "Unknown, Commander. The nanobots are targeting our ships differently. Some vessels lose power immediately. Others maintain systems longer before shutdown." Kane had programmed his nanobots with detailed records of every Corthani ship. Vessels that had participated in hospital ship attacks were disabled first and most completely. Ships with clean records were treated more gently, with their crews receiving medical attention for injuries sustained in previous battles. Within 10 minutes, the entire Corthani fleet floated helplessly in space. But unlike previous engagements, Kane's nanobots continued working. They moved through the disabled ships, providing medical care to wounded crew members while ensuring the vessels remained powerless. Zektar found himself trapped on his bridge as nanobots flowed through his ship's corridors. His crew reported the same thing from every deck. The tiny machines were healing their injuries while keeping their weapons offline. "This is impossible," Zektar said to himself. "Weapons cannot heal and harm at the same time." Kane's voice echoed through every ship in the Korthani fleet. "War Commander, your crew is now receiving medical treatment. Broken bones are being repaired. Radiation poisoning is being cured. Old battle wounds are healing. My nanobots are doing what Korthani warriors never learned to do. They are choosing mercy." "Why?" Zektar asked, his voice broadcasting to the entire galaxy. "Why heal your enemies?" "Because that is what we do," Kane replied. "Humans heal the wounded regardless of species. That is what the Mercy's Dawn was doing when you destroyed it. That is what every human hospital ship has always done." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the aftermath of the Battle of Sol system. The most powerful fleet in Korthani history floated helplessly, while human rescue ships approached to offer assistance. Medical teams prepared to treat wounded enemies with the same care they would show their own people. On his flagship, War Commander, Zektar felt nanobots repairing damage to his left arm, an old injury from his first war. The healing process was gentle, careful, precise. He had never experienced anything like it. "Dr. Kane," Zektar said over the communication channel, "I do not understand. You could kill us all in seconds. Why show mercy to those who have shown you none?" Kane's answer was heard across the galaxy. "Because someone must remember what mercy means. Someone must choose healing over vengeance. Someone must prove that the strongest response to cruelty is compassion." Admiral Sullivan approached Kane on Luna Station. "Doctor, what happens now? We have their entire fleet disabled." Kane looked at the tactical display showing 300 helpless Korthani ships. "Now we make a choice that will define the galaxy's future. We help them repair their vessels. We give them medical supplies. We send them home healthy and whole." "And if they attack again?" Kane's expression was serene. "They will not attack again. War Commander Zektar has learned something today. His warriors have felt what it means to receive mercy from an enemy. That lesson will spread throughout the Korthani Empire." 3 days later, the Korthani fleet departed Earth's solar system. Their ships had been repaired by human engineering teams working alongside Kane's nanobots. Wounded crew members had received medical treatment that surpassed anything in Korthani space. War Commander Zektar sent a final message before leaving. "Dr. Kane, the Korthani Empire formally requests a ceasefire. We wish to discuss terms for ending this war." "The terms are simple," Kane replied. "Medical neutrality will be respected by all parties. Hospital ships are sacred and must never be attacked. Civilian populations will be protected. In return, my nanobots will provide healing technology to any species that honors these principles." 6 months later, the Treaty of New Geneva was signed by representatives from 43 species. The Third Galactic War officially ended, and a new era of galactic medicine began. Dr. Marcus Kane established the Galactic Medical Corps, with headquarters on a massive hospital station built near Earth. The station was painted white with red medical crosses, just like the old Mercy's Dawn. But this time, the hospital was protected by the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, Kane's nanobots. Kane worked in the station's main medical bay, treating patients from across the galaxy. Korthani warriors came for healing alongside human civilians. Crystalline, Collective members received treatment next to hegemony diplomats. The bay where Kane had once watched a Viridian child die was now filled with children from 20 different species, all receiving care without regard to their world of origin. One day, a young Korthani medical student approached Kane. Her name was Vesara, and she had traveled from the Empire's capital to study under the human doctor who had changed everything. "Dr. Kane," Vesara said nervously, "I wish to learn your healing methods. My people want to understand medicine that shows mercy to enemies." Kane looked at the young Korthani. She reminded him of the medical staff he had lost on the Mercy's dawn. Eager to help, dedicated to healing, innocent of the politics that had caused so much suffering. "Medicine is not about enemies," Kane told her gently. "Medicine is about healing. Species, politics, and old conflicts do not matter in a medical bay. There are only patients who need care." Vesara worked alongside Kane for the next year, learning not just medical techniques but the philosophy behind them. She saw how Kane treated